Now today we're going to learn how to make selections, edit selections, and save selections. The tool I'm going to start with is the Lasso Tool, which is the third one down. If I hold down on it, you see I have three options: the Lasso Tool, Polygonal Lasso Tool, and Magnetic Lasso Tool. And since what I want to do here is change the color of her sweater, what I'm going to do, well, first of all, the Lasso Tool allows you to kind of draw freehand whatever selection you want to make. Right? The Polygonal Lasso Tool, which is the second one down, you basically point and click and you can create straight lines, which is good if you're doing these more hard-edged shapes. It works quite well. But the one that I'm going to use is called the Magnetic Lasso Tool. What this does, it's going to kind of do a little bit of the thinking for me. So if I just kind of click and gently follow the outline of her sweater, it's going to help me make a selection based on that. Now I'm just going to do this kind of quickly so we can keep moving here. When I'm done, you can see that it does a pretty good job of outlining her shape, but you can see there's still a few areas in here that need some work. So what I'm going to use instead, or what I'm going to use next, is the Quick Mask mode, which, as you can see, is this icon down here. Looks like a rectangle with a circle inside it. When I click on that, you see two things happen. A, the area that I didn't have selected gets this red tint to it. And B, it switches my foreground color to black and my background color to white. I'm going to switch over to the paintbrush tool and change the size of my brush, which you can do with the left and right bracket keys. What I'm going to do is when you paint with black, as you can see, that's my foreground color, that's going to help me to clean up some of these parts that kind of went through. Since, again, the part that is selected, or the part that is not selected is red, I want to paint her collar in with that just so it's no longer part of the selection, since I just want her sweater to be selected. Right? And you see there's a couple more areas here. And then if I ever make a mistake and kind of bleed in, I can switch over to white and paint that back out. So obviously when you guys are doing this, you want to take a little bit more time. I need to kind of keep this going. So I can clean out these areas a little bit more. So now when I switch her bracelet, oops. Again, if you hit X, it'll flip the foreground and background color, so I can go back in, paint out her bracelet. Right there. That will do for now. So once you have your selection where you want it, we can exit Quick Mask mode, and you see that it's adjusted my selection accordingly. The next thing I want to do is to save my selection, and I can do that by going to Select, Save Selection, and then in the dialog that pops up, I can just give it a name, right? As you can see, I've already done this. I have one that's just called Shirt. And if I go over to Channels and select it, you can see the actual selection. At any time, if I want to go through and reselect that, I can go to Channels, hold down Control, and click on that, and it's going to remake that selection. So now what I want to do, like I said, is to change the color of her sweater. Now, We talked before about destructive and non-destructive editing. Destructive would be as if I just went up here to Image Adjustments, again with the selection still being made, go to Hue Saturation, and make the change here. Let's get a nice blue color here. Right? I still, obviously, her reflection down here is another issue, but we'll deal with that later. So as you can see, it did a pretty decent job. If you go in, some of the reflective light needs to be cleaned up here. But for the most part, we did change the color of her sweater. But we directly changed the image, so if we needed to go back, there really isn't a great way to do it. I could remake the selection and change the color, but it isn't the cleanest way to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back up a few steps to where I just created the selection, and instead I'm going to create with the selection still being made, I'm going to make an adjustment layer by clicking the half circles down here and just go to Hue Saturation. So what you see happens here is that I have a new layer, an adjustment layer, and what it did is it created a mask where her shirt was selected, right? So now, you can see the mask, but if I just hold down Shift and click on that, I'm sorry, not Shift, Alt. And what it did is it created a mask, which is kind of like a cutout. And this layer exists outside the actual background layer. So I look in my adjustments panel, I can go and change the color of her sweater. Let's find that blue again. And what it does is it creates an adjustment layer, but only for that selection that I made. So I can turn this on and off, and I still have the layer below it. Now the great thing about this is if you see here on the when I have the adjustment layer, or I'm sorry, the layer mask selected, my colors go back to that black and white. So now I can actually go back and make certain changes. So let's say there was a piece of this that was still red, right? So I can and I have to make sure that that layer mask, is selected. I can go in and fix that, and what I'm doing is I'm painting on the layer mask and repairing that. But that's one way to use a selection to make adjustments. Another great way to start, which would kind of help alleviate this issue we're having here with reflective light, is a method called Selective Color. So a lot of students like to use the magic wand tool, and again, it doesn't really do a great job because it basically what it does is it finds whatever color you click on, and it looks for it elsewhere in the image. And you can use the tolerance and some of the other settings to kind of adjust that. But with Selective Color, it does a more comprehensive evaluation of the image in terms of like that woman's shirt was red, and it reflected red onto the counter of the table. So here what I want to do is I want to select the water, and I want to make it a little more blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Select, Color Range, and then I'm going to get a dialog box that looks like this. Oops, I had a selection made. So Select, Color Range, and I'm going to select the color that I want to sample, and you see that I have, it gives me kind of a black and white evaluation of the image. Now what I can do here is change how sensitive that is, right? You can see I can become more or less. So I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to create an adjustment layer. So I'm going to go to here, and I'm going to use Hue Saturation because I just want to bend that a little bit towards blue. So now when I change the hue, it's only changing the color of the water, right? And because I did it with an adjustment layer, it's non-destructive. I can go back and change that at any time. These are, like I said, most of these there isn't like one button that's going to solve all your issues. It's going to be up to you, your experience, and your experimenting with these different techniques to make the kind of selections you want to make.